When people think of the First World War, they think of soldiers in trenches. They think of mud and blood, of battle and slaughter. We're going to tell a different story, the story of nurses, the women who saved lives. Many worked close to the front lines, on what one nurse called the second battlefield, the casualty clearing station, the field hospital, the base hospital. She said it was like working on the edge of a vast, raging ocean. Death was like the tide pulling men under. Nurses were battling to drag them back to life. I'm Christine Hallett, Professor of Nursing History at the University of Manchester. And I study the writings of First World War nurses and write books about their lives and their work. I'm a trained nurse as well as a historian, and I was first drawn to nursing by the story of a First World War nurse, Vera Brittain. I was impressed by her courage, by her ability to retain her humanity through years of work in military hospitals, caring for patients with horrific gangrenous wounds, rotting trench feet, and the emotional trauma of shell shock. Now, I want to bring the stories of extraordinary nurses like her to the attention of a wide audience. In this series, we will trace the stories of women such as Alice Fitzgerald, an American nurse who was seconded to a British casualty clearing station during the Battle of the Somme, and who slept at night in her tent with a tin helmet over her face as shells exploded nearby. For me, what is most compelling about the nurses of the First World War is the way their stories weave personal adventure and sacrifice with extraordinary clinical achievement. Some, such as Edith Cavell, are relatively well known. Others, like Elsie Knocker and Mary Chisholm, the so-called heroines of Pervyse, were minor celebrities in their own day, but have been largely forgotten. Elsie and Mary set up a first aid post right behind the Belgian lines in 1914 and stayed for 3.5 years providing emergency care until they were wounded by a gas attack and forced to give up their work. We'll tell the story of Mary Borden, an American heiress who set up and funded her own field hospitals in France and Belgium, and who hired fully qualified American, British, Canadian, Australian and French nurses. One of our Australian nurses, May Tilton, cared for patients with dysentery and shell shock in an Egyptian base hospital during the Gallipoli campaign. She caught dysentery herself, but hid her illness so that she could continue to care for her patients. What holds these stories together is the idea that nurses were fighting their own battles on 3 fronts. They were fighting for the lives of their patients, but they were also fighting for their own rights as women and for their professional status as nurses.